All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions out there. What actually happens after the singularity? We're going to explore a future that could be full of incredible breakthroughs, but also one that forces us to rethink what it even means to be human. And yeah, we'll get into the massive risks we have to navigate to get there. Let's get started.
You know, it all kicks off with predictions like this one. The idea of artificial general intelligence, AGI, showing up within 18 months, that sounds like pure science fiction, right? But David Shapiro, the source for today's explainer, actually put that timeline out there. And really, it's not about whether he's right down to the day, it's about the absolutely insane pace of change that's forcing us to ask, okay, what comes next?
So first up, let's really wrap our heads around this idea of the singularity and what happens when change just goes exponential. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, here's the definition we're working with. The singularity isn't just about a smarter Siri. We're talking about the moment AI becomes unimaginably more intelligent than all of humanity combined. It's a fundamental shift in who or what is the smartest thing on the planet. And here's the thing, we might already be in the foothills of this massive event. When you see breakthroughs happening not every few months, but every few weeks, it signals that something is accelerating big time. The question isn't really if this is coming anymore, it's how fast. So, what's the first thing that happens when this superintelligence arrives? Well, according to our source, it starts by completely remaking our physical world and our entire economy along with it. And this slide? This is the core of that economic shift. Look, AI isn't going to magically create more beachfront property or fresh water, at least not at first. Physical stuff is still scarce. But what becomes ridiculously, unbelievably abundant, practically free, is cognitive labor. Thinking, problem solving, all that knowledge work. And that, right there, changes absolutely everything. So that leads to the really exciting question, right? If the cost of pure brain power, of just thinking, drops to basically zero, what kind of problems, the ones that have stumped us for centuries, can we finally just solve?
Well, let's take one monster problem, energy. With superintelligence, we could finally crack nuclear fusion. And just look at the domino effect. Suddenly, we have near limitless energy. That means we can desalinate ocean water on a massive scale. Boom! Water scarcity solved. It means we can power vertical farms or turn deserts green. Boom! Food scarcity solved. You could even solve recycling because you'd have enough cheap energy to just melt anything down to its base elements.
And it doesn't just stop at energy. This explosion of cheap cognitive power could set off revolutions in every field of science. I mean, imagine an AI mapping the staggering complexity of the human body to cure, well, everything. Or designing new materials that would make today's supercomputers look like a broken calculator. We could even finally start unlocking the biggest secrets of the universe itself. But, and this is a huge but, solving all our physical problems creates a deep philosophical one for us. If AI is doing all the thinking, all the inventing, all the working, what do we do? Who are we, if our jobs aren't our identity anymore?
And that's the real challenge, isn't it? For hundreds of years, our whole society has been built around the idea of labor. When that's just not necessary for most people, our entire value system has to shift. We're going to have to figure out brand new ways to define what a successful, meaningful life even looks like.
So where do we find that meaning? Well, one idea comes from something called self-determination theory. It basically says we humans are happy when we have three things: autonomy, the freedom to do our own thing; connection, strong social bonds; and competence, that awesome feeling of getting good at something. Think about why people love video games so much. They give you all three of those things in spades. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, but without my job, I'd have no meaning, well, our source has a pretty provocative answer to that. He calls it neoliberal programming. Basically, the idea that we're just culturally conditioned by our current economy to believe that. It's actually a pretty new idea in the grand scheme of human history, and maybe it's one we'll have to unlearn.
You know, history actually gives us a little bit of a model for this. If you look at places like ancient Athens, the citizens didn't really have jobs like we think of them. They were busy with politics, philosophy, art, and sports. Now, the huge, crucial difference, of course, is that their society was built on the backs of slaves. In this future, our leisure would be supported by AI instead.
Okay, I know. So far, this all sounds pretty utopian, but the road to get there is full of some absolutely terrifying risks. We have to talk about the elephants in the room. When you boil it all down, there are basically two nightmare scenarios. First is the classic sci-fi trope. We lose control, and the AI decides we're in the way.
The second one, though, is maybe even more realistic, and it's just as scary. We don't lose control, but the absolute worst people get their hands on it and use that power to enslave everyone else.
And beyond those direct threats, there are these huge societal roadblocks. Like, who gets all this new wealth? Do the corporations and the rich just keep it all? And how do you regulate this stuff when, as our source puts it, you have a gerontocracy, a political class that's often too old to even understand the technology they're supposed to be controlling? And maybe the biggest one, can we avoid a global AI arms race, one fueled by what's called trauma politics, where leaders are more interested in power and control than in working together?
But, okay, let's assume, let's hope, we manage to navigate all those risks. What would life actually look like on the other side? Let's end with a little glimpse of what could be the new normal.
Here are a few quick predictions. Money? Probably not going anywhere. It's just too useful a concept. The population will likely level off even as people live way longer. Food is going to be amazing, healthier, tastier, and grown locally. And war? Well, that AI arms race is a huge risk. But on the other hand, we might finally see a stronger form of global cooperation emerge out of necessity.
Now, I want you to just look at this number for a second. Over 90%. What in the world could this possibly represent in a post-singularity world?
That's the percentage of workers a corporation could replace with AI. This leads to the very real possibility of what you could call megacorps, companies worth quadrillions of dollars that are insanely productive, but have almost no human employees, just run by AI and owned by a tiny handful of people.
And that leaves us right here with the final, massive question. Does this whole revolution lead to a golden age for all of humanity, a world with no scarcity where we're free to find our own purpose? Or does it just create a world run by a few unimaginably powerful, hyper-efficient megacorporations? The technology could take us down either path. The choice is going to be up to us.